In writing this book, you start off focusing on places, and then you realize, no, that's not going to help you because there's different kinds of situations. So when you get on a plane, dealing with the passenger in front of you, the stewardess, the getting out, through customs, and talking to the cab driver, and finding a place to stay, et cetera, buying stuff. All these things are different situations, and they have some commonalities. So the basic commonality is understanding what that person can get from you that benefits him. And you're going to be viewed as a tourist. Doesn't matter how grizzled and experienced you think you are. You're bringing money and something into their lives. So, for example, when you go through customs, you don't need to make friends, right? Just make sure you just answer the questions, move through. When you get into the cab, different world. You want to make friends with that guy. He's going to try to sell you some kind of tour or figure out where you're staying so he can tell touts to come rob you or whatever. But you're going to ask him, how many kids do you have? What should I see here? And he's going to say, well, how long are you here for? I can arrange this. And you say, well, what's your favorite food to eat? And suddenly this guy will say, oh, this guy's asking me questions about my home, my family. And in most situations, in most cases, once you ask his name and how many kids he has, and if he likes being a cab driver or whatever, you now have a bond. Now, this has worked for me when I have literally left my wallet or a camera in the cab, because you're jet lagged and people start grabbing things out of your hand, and I tell them who I am, where I'm staying, why I'm there. And in some cases, whether it's Afghanistan or Cairo, they have come back to me and said, hey, you left this in my cab, which to me is, okay, maybe if you just stared at the guy and didn't say a word, maybe you would have done that anyways, but there's a bond you form. And everywhere you go, like you go to the falafel shop for something to eat, you talk to people, you ask them, is this the best falafel? How long have you been making falafel? These kind of engagements reduce stress and open avenues for opportunities.
Are you doing this to get information?
I'm trying to learn as quickly as I can about what to do, what not to do. If I need someone to help me, I now have a friend when I walk past the falafel shop. He waves at me, I wave at him. When I go to a restaurant, I don't treat the waitress like she's just somebody that works there. I ask her questions. Some people don't want to talk to you, that's fine, but each one of these interactions builds a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of reference, and maybe a friend, right? Yeah. In a very hostile situation, you're going to have two kinds of people who want to take advantage of you and people that want to help you. And it's up to you to decide which is which. Now, people ask certain questions if they're going to rob you or take advantage of you. They want to know where you're staying, how long you're going to be here for, are you with somebody, have you been here before? And these are questions you kind of deflect, And these are questions that don't benefit the person that's asking them. You respond by asking them questions. And if they don't want to tell you who they are, then you pretty much have a good idea that this is not a good conversation. Mm-hmm. As you expand your base, now remember, you just landed in a place, so as you expand your base, you're going to want to hire somebody to take you somewhere. It helps sometimes to make friends before you get there, so someone can actually meet you. If you don't speak the language, they can translate. If they have a little village they want to take you to and whatever, I got to fix this or do that or buy this. If you don't have that, people who deal with tourists can be very helpful. You don't have to hire them, but people who normally deal with tourists will speak English. Not so much the hotel staff, but people who sell tours. Their reputation is built on people surviving and going online and saying that, Ahmed was great, whatever. Right. These people become your friends as well, right? There's certain restaurants and places where foreigners go. You can ask questions there. After a couple of days, you should have a feel for, is this a good idea to go there, or is that too dangerous? Is it too expensive? And ultimately, you're going to run into troubles. You're going to be walking down the street, a cop is going to stop you, ask to see your papers, and you're going to think, why does he need my papers? And you realize he just wants to see where your wallet is, and he wants to see where your passport is. And he's going to fine you for something. And typically when you're taking pictures I call them shitholes, but if you take pictures, 9 times out of 10, you will be stopped and detained and arrested. Now, these days when everybody has a phone, it's a little more loosey-goosey, but there are countries where you're not allowed to take pictures. Or worse, there's something in the picture, like a police station, a soldier, where you're just filming and he's driving through a checkpoint. And like, "Er,
Yeah,
give me your camera."
Even in France, where you don't think I would have gotten harassed, I got harassed by the cops for taking photos of them stopping guy. They made me delete everything off my camera. I feel like even this day and age, having a camera is, because everybody's so used to phones, that when you do pull out a camera, it almost draws more attention in a way.
It is, and in some countries they're going to try to hit you up for money. They're going to take it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been dragged down to the police station. They want to know who I am, what I'm doing, and basically they want me to give them a little cadeau or a pourboire or a tip or something, tea money, and they let you go, and then they become your friend. Some places like Syria, they follow you around all day long. You can hear the little motorbike. I would invite them to have lunch, and I'd say, "Hey, I'm staying here. I usually leave at 8. I have breakfast at the hotel. I'm going to be going there." And then they become your friend. And like the guy that's following you, trying to be all sneaky, looking this way, doesn't have to stress out because he can go back to his boss and say, "Oh,
Can you explain to me like how that psychology works?
Well, some countries you're considered hostile, and you will be followed. Some African countries, some Middle Eastern countries, your phone will be tapped. Your room may be bugged. I mean, these are realities, not fantasies. And if you are a high-profile person, like a journalist or a filmmaker or somebody that's working for a large corporation, they'll be interested in what you're doing. They'll gather intelligence on you. And you have to be aware of that. So, for example, I always carry I call it a dummy phone, but it's actually my camera. So I'll buy a $400, $600 with a Xiaomi's or Huawei's or whatever that has a great camera. There's nothing on it. I can put a local SIM card in it if I want, but I don't keep my dog and my family and my car and my. And they'll also want to look at your laptop, or they'll try to get into your laptop through the router system. It's almost, you can just expect that there are no secrets. So whatever you bring into that country will be violated. And you have to think, I need a work computer. I need a clean work computer. That if somebody says,
and is that why you buy your phone? Is it's a clean phone?
Yeah.
Back to the show.
And again, the phone is a lifeline. So even if you lost your other phone, which you keep buried deep in your pack or your butt bag or whatever, this can be your secondary phone. But
can you tell me if somebody hacks your phone, what is the sign that your phone has been hacked?
Battery usage. So if you have a local SIM card and somebody wants to turn it on, they can. They don't need your permission. You don't have to do anything fancy. They can track where you are with the SIM card. And you have to give them your passport and fill out all this. So they know exactly who you are. Where you sleep at night is where you're staying, so they know where you live. They know where you're traveling. I mean, you can turn off things like, geographic tracking or GPS tracking, but they still can track you through the cell phone towers.
So just realize that they know you. They can get to you if they want to get to you.
The other thing is, don't lie. Like if you think you're going to go to a police state, like Cairo, Syria, whatever, and you're going to tell some guy some story, that's not going to happen because they got Google, you got Google. So if you think you're going to sneak around and meet the rebels or whatever, not going to happen. So my point is that accept that as an everyday part of life for many countries. Constant surveillance, interest in what you're doing, people following you, people taking pictures of you, whatever. And again, this is why making this friend network is important, because you'll find that there's people that are your friend that don't like to be followed but know the rules, and they will sort of guide you through that process of like, no, that guy's not good, or that guy's been following you, or they came to me after I dropped you off and they asked you this and they asked you that. So it's a narrative you have to follow.
I noticed that when a lot of people that I've traveled with that don't do a lot of traveling, we go to new countries, they keep to themselves. They don't like to start up those conversations, but I'm always trying to start up those conversations. And I noticed with you, you're always you're having a conversation with everyone.
Everyone.
And you're just...
Well, here's the disease. I mean, you go on YouTube, you see somebody's got their fancy phone and a camera, and they're going to go see this place or do this thing, and they're basically talking to their camera. They're not talking to locals. They don't ever turn the camera around and say, "Oh, how long have you had your shop here? How long has this place been here?" It's a weird isolation that makes it like, okay, you come home now, you can watch all your video, but did you actually ask or talk to anybody? Did they invite you to their house for dinner or whatever? So I don't know if it's fear or whether it's just the cultural way that new generations view travel as like an isolated bubble. I got my picture, like trophies, I took this picture with me on this cliff. I really enjoy meeting people, and you'll find I'm still alive, right? I've been to terrible places.
Yeah.
When people try to do you harm, you will have a group of people who will protect you, who will warn you and guide you. And even understanding what we call corruption, like bribery, a lot of times you'll get stopped. It could be bicycling, it could be driving, you'll get stopped by a cop, and he will start looking for things to arrest you for. And they'll start escalating. It'll be something small, and you'll say, bugger off, I'm not paying you money or whatever. And then suddenly it becomes a bigger thing, and you're going to have to go to the station. As soon as you go to the station, you got to pay the chief, right? So now the prices are going up, up, up. Patronage is a better word for it. We call it bribery, but a lot of times foreigners, cops see a foreigner. That guy's got money. The scale can be escalated very quickly because you probably got a lot of money on you or a lot of valuable things. So he's just going to hit you up for a small tip, right? Whatever they call it. And that's where a local can help you out because you let them pay. You let them pay the fine, right? And then the guy can't BS the local about what's the right fine for jaywalking, taking a picture, speeding, going through a stoplight that doesn't exist. I mean, in Tijuana, on Friday night, like right now, if you drove to Tijuana, you'd hear like boop, and then the cop would pull you over. Sometimes they don't have cars, and they say, you went through a stoplight. You look around, like there's no stoplight. He said, yes, you did, and they start writing you a ticket. And I asked the cop, I said, well, what, you're writing me a ticket for something that doesn't exist. I said, how many of these do you write? He said, oh, enough to make my pay. Like, in other words, Friday is payday, and they start writing these tickets for tourists that are in a hurry, and it's just how they make their money. And cops are typically very poorly paid in most of these countries. Soldiers are worse, but soldiers tend to be less corrupt than, let's say, police. And knowing more about it from the locals is important. So you have to embrace it, you have to accept it, but that bubble we talked about gets wider as you talk to more and more people.
So how important is it to bring money around that you're willing to spend on these things?
Now, here's a tip that comes from my book. People steal it from my book, but it's a very good tip, is I carry a fake wallet. So I carry a butt bag, the sexiest fashion accessory you can possibly have. And in that butt bag is not my passport, not my wallet, but a fake wallet and an old passport. And when people see me walking down the street, they assume that everything I have is in that butt bag. Yes. So the point is that if you're walking without a butt bag, they know you have a money belt, right? Or they know you have these little zipper pockets or whatever, and they use razor blades, or they'll just stop you and they'll thump you and they'll try to take it away from you. But if they think they got what they wanted, and just like my fake phone, like people they'll literally take a stick while you're driving in a car in Nairobi and try to flick your watch off. They'll come up beside you and they got this little stick they stick in there and they pop your. So I wear my watch on the other side, right? So it's not sitting out the window. So a fake wallet, just with a bunch of, I got some Djibouti money that I'll never ever change in my life. I got old Swedish krona or something, like just old expired credit cards. It's just enough to buy your time.
And you keep it in there? That's funny.
Yeah. Well, it's not funny for the guy that starts thumbing through it, but that's the point, is that there's a lot of minor theft, and it's typically related to alcohol, bars, nighttime. And I tend to stay away from that. I go to people's homes if I want to celebrate, or people invite me to their house for dinner, and I bring something. But if you go to, the bars or the tourist streets, like even New Orleans, for example, during Mardi Gras, if you sit on a balcony and you watch the crowd and you watch the dynamics of the crowd, it's like the herds in the Serengeti. There are people at different spots just watching for the drunk guy that's not paying attention. Right. So, for example, if I walk up to you and say, oh, did you drop your wallet? And what do? You go, that's where your wallet is, right? I say, oh, okay, good. And the next guy is going to steal your wallet, like 20 feet, 30 feet down the road. So they're a well-oiled machine, and you are the prey.
So how, whenever you enter a new country, do you find a fixer? Tell us the idea of a fixer. Yeah. Okay, so we use the word fixer.
That means something's broken, right? No, so I try to find a local who understands the nuances and the structure of where I'm going. So in Afghanistan, you can't hire this guy to go there because he's not from there. You have to hire somebody from there. And if I'm going to the north or the south, or if I'm going to Kabul and I want to go into the hinterlands, I will typically find someone who is from that village. And it helps if they speak English, but sometimes I've gone places where I don't speak a word, and I just get by and pick up the language bit by bit. I was on the border looking for bin Laden, right? And I stayed at this guy's house who worked with bin Laden and also worked with the Taliban later. And he would tell these funny stories, and I wouldn't know what he was saying. But then people used to come through the house from Miramshah, which is where bin Laden's people were, and Zawahiri and whatever. And a lot of them spoke perfect English because they were Arabs, and they would translate these stories. But because I was this guy's guest, they couldn't mess with me. Mm-hmm. And he was essentially giving them hospitality, so they couldn't give me a hard time or do anything. So once you're ingrained in that situation, you learn a lot. Now, had I taken the wrong person, my host wouldn't have trusted him. Mm-hmm. And they would say, no, he's from that tribe. We don't get along with that tribe because they steal, our whatevers. And you get into the nuances of tribalism, villages, cities, history, or whatever. So try to pick someone from the actual village you're going to. Mm-hmm. If it's someone you meet here, which is great, they can usually say, hey, Waleed, will you come meet my friend? You agree on some kind of price. You never agree to whatever you want to pay, because that's like they do that thing where they look like you just broke their heart, and they look at the money and they look at you and they hand it back to you, and then it's like, okay, here we go. Yeah.
So you agree beforehand, you make that transaction apparent, like this is what it's going to be. Of course, that's just good practice anywhere.
Because they know, they're smarter than you. They've done this. So the other place is journalists. If you go to a local newspaper, you'll find really bright guys or women that are English speaking. Medical colleges, a lot of guys studying medicine speak very good English. Feel very proud about taking you to this place to visit their home. I mean, it's
fun for them, right? I mean, they get to, it's their adventure.
They're as interested in getting to know you as you are about getting to know them and their world, right? Mm-hmm. The trust that you create between the local, and I'm not talking about a tour guide, like the happy-dappy, he loves everybody. I'm talking about someone that really wants to take you to his village. And I'll tell you a quick story. So I was in the tribal areas of Pakistan, and I was on a bus, and I was going through the mountains there, and there was a guy on the bus, a young man, spoke broken English, and he said, will you come to my house for dinner? And I thought, well, I'd rather than stay at some little hotel in some horrible little Pakistani mountain town, I'll stay there. Now, staying there means you sleep on the floor, and I didn't realize it was like up in the mountains, right? So we go up in the mountains, and they put on this big feed, and then the next morning, these people start coming, and they all want to meet me, and it's sort of like an honor to meet the guest who's from America. And these people showed up. They didn't speak a word. They're older elders, whatever, but it was an honor for them to come, just shake my hand, say hi, welcome to our village. And the night before, I learned all about the rebel group that they were part of and whatever. And so I thought, what can I give them, right? So I thought, I'm going to take a picture of each person. So these beautiful faces, of course. So I sit each person down, take their picture, write down his name, and then I leave. And it's an interesting experience. And we slept in like a log cabin where they actually bolt the logs over the door, which is interesting if you have to get up in the middle of the night because you've got diarrhea because you just ate something at a bus stop. Yeah. But anyway, the point is that when I got back, I told my assistant, I said, hey, make some jumbo prints of these pictures and then mail it to this address. So my assistant, thinking jumbo prints, ordered, I think there were 16 by 24s, like big pictures, right, of each guy. It was beautiful. Yeah. Rolled it up, sent it by FedEx to Pakistan. That cost a few bucks. And then nothing happened. And then I think a month goes by or something, maybe more. And I get this letter. And, in this village, they had one kid that spoke English, and they really wanted me to talk to him, and he really translated for everybody. And it was this little kid. And I could tell this little kid had written this letter because it's kind of like schoolboy English. And they said, dear Honorable Mr. Pelton, you are a prince amongst men. You have made our village so happy. And each person has one of these portraits in their house, right? In their mud hut or whatever. And I realized they've never had their picture taken.
Right.
This is like a big deal for them, right? So anytime I want to go back to this remote tribal village, I can. And they'll be like, oh my God, you're the guy who sent us these photos. So it's important, right?
It is important. That's funny. Whenever I talk to people and I say, if you're going to print, just print big. And that's like...
Well, these days you can just print, but back then you would have to go to a custom lab, and each one of those prints was probably a couple $100.
I always think things are just impressive when they're big. So your assistant made a good mistake.
Imagine if you came here and you stayed here and then you sent me this beautiful portrait. I'd be like, wow, like I'm humbled, right? So and then I used to bring Polaroids, right? Yeah. Like in Borneo and places like that. In Asia, I would bring an old SX70 and I have all this Polaroid film. And the problem is that once people see that you're handing out pictures, there's hundreds of people outside your little longhouse, like all waiting, because they don't know that it costs money, like $5 a picture or whatever it was back then. And then they had these little sticker pictures. They were like little peel-off stickers. So when I was in Africa, like Sierra Leone and places like that, I had this little camera and you go whoosh, like this, and then they would stick it on their gun and their chest. And then I migrated to Mr. DP stickers because it was kind of like, I'm going to go broke visiting these countries because they all want pictures, right? And nowadays you can send people emails. Like you can take a picture of somebody at a checkpoint and you can ask them for their email and shoo.
Your Mr. DP stickers are pretty cool. They're like a calling card.
There to help people find me. So
yeah, they served a function, didn't they?
I would put them on things, villages and doors or whatever. And if someone was looking for me and they didn't speak English and they didn't know my name, they go, that guy, right?
Right.
And it was a handy tool. And then also it became sort of a weird talisman. So when I was in the war in Sudan, I brought some T-shirts, and these guys were all 7 feet tall and whatever. Mm-hmm. And I found out later that they would wear them into battle because they had good juju. So they would put these black T-shirts on, and they'd charge off.
Awesome! It's a skull with a hat. I mean, they're pretty awesome.
And then I think Bougainville in the South Pacific, they went on about no journalist has ever been here, no foreigners ever been, because they were going to kill anybody that landed. And they're like, what are these stickers doing here? Like everybody's got these stickers. Like who is that?
Yeah,
so that's funny.
That's a good story.
So, give gifts, ask people questions, get to know people. I don't think I've ever had a bad experience with people telling me to just shut up and keep moving. It's usually people are interested in.
People
talking.
are interested. I'd say when we travel to.
If you're interested in them, in other words, you telling them your story, they're like, okay, fine, but I mean,
right.
It's give and take, right? Yeah. And just taking random pictures of people, like like the street photographer, like stealing pictures, that pisses people off. Mm-hmm. And you will get arrested, and they will come to you like, why are you taking pictures? Mm-hmm. If you go up to somebody and say, you have the most beautiful face, can I take your picture? And then people start gathering around. You're like, oh, can I take your picture? Can I?
So I think
you can now, with Google Translate, you take a picture of a sign, it tells you what it is. Yeah. You can speak into your phone, play it back in whatever language. That destroys some of the fun, though, right? Some of the interface that you should have. So.
You lose something, you're gaining something, but you lose that too. Yeah,
and you have nothing to lose by being overly friendly. Nothing to lose, everything to gain. And if someone says, stop talking to me, fine, okay. But 9 times out of 10, people enjoy talking to strangers. Yeah. And they're very proud of their country, where they came from, their food, whatever. So you're always going to get invited to something.
So I want to switch it up a little bit with, we started talking about digitalization, and how do you keep, say you're going to use your computer somewhere, let's talk about computer and phone, and I don't know if there's much you can do about the phone, well, I guess the same thing with the computer, but what would you, take VPNs, for example, do those work, do those help? What are things that you can do to protect?
No, so the key to security is stay off the internet, stay off the cell phone systems, because they're literally designed to gather information. That's hard. So the substitute for a long time was the internet cafe. You go in, you log on, you do your Skype thing or whatever you want to do. But the problem is the phone is everything now. It's how you find where to eat. I mean, it's very difficult to find a place where a phone does not work and that you cannot find information about that place on your phone, right? So you have to accept that for every bit of access and ease you're getting, you're losing a little bit of privacy and maybe security, right? I would never bring a fully loaded laptop anywhere. Just not. I would bring an iPad. I would bring anything but a fully loaded laptop. Because they break very easily and whatever. But it's just too much of a temptation to people. Secondly, when you bring a phone, you have to stop and think about it. Okay, my iPhone cost me $1,200. It's got everything on it, all my pictures, whatever. I'm not a crook. Why should they care? But when you talk about scammers, when you talk about the ability to get into your life, into your bank account, it becomes very dangerous. This is, whether you're in Indonesia or Russia or whatever, China, your phone is a gateway to your bank accounts, to your friends. And a simple scam like, oh, Reza's in trouble, he's in the hospital, he can't speak, but he needs $500. Very common scam, right? And the more details they have... Effective. Yeah, because if they know that you have a brown jacket or what, they can build that up. And if they know phone numbers from your family or whatever, sometimes they just go, but the point is that you have to look at your information as being potentially a way to get into your family, your bank accounts, and be used by scammers. And there's no shortage of scammers. So the less you have on your phone, the better. The less you carry, the better, right? And I know it sounds hard to believe, but you can actually travel around the world without a phone. Mm-hmm. You can literally go into a place with a map, with a person that knows where they're going, and navigate the whole thing and come back out and kind of go, that was interesting. So, I mean, it's hard to think of it. It's hard to think that's possible, but you can do it. Particularly if you're going to a place where they're going to insert something into your phone, and you're going to be going back, and you're going to have violation of your privacy, right? Now, again, why does that matter? Well, because there's scammers that buy phone numbers. Like, for example, I checked into a hotel in New York. I was behind the short guy from Hall & Oates. And the lady had a Russian accent. I said, I'll be right back. Took my credit card and my driver's license, went into an office, and came back out. I didn't really think about it, because she said she had to make a copy. The next day, somebody's buying, $2,000 worth of stereo equipment with that card because they reprogram it into a new card, right? Now, would I expect to be ripped off in New York City? I got to think of the name, too. It's on 52nd. Anyway, the point is, scams rely on trust. And the more you actually approach people and you ask them, hey, what are you doing, whatever, the less likely they are to scam you. There's all kinds of crazy, like pickpocket tips. I mean, people bump into you and you go like this, and then there goes your wallet. I mean, there's just not that people carry a wallet anymore, but your camera gets cut. You put your back pocket, they have razor blades, they go in the back, they take out what they want. Just a lot of things happen.
Yeah, that's troubling. It's kind of scary.
That's in the cities where the tourists are. So like the number 2 or 3 piece of advice is stay away from tourists. If you're going into a place, you do not want to stay where a lot of tourists stay for a couple of reasons. One is that you're going to see tourists. 2, you're going to not really get the full benefit of your travel experience. And the third thing is that you're going to see touts everywhere. Mm-hmm. Touts, like crooks, hustlers, whatever, because they prey on tourists, just like the leopards and the wildebeest, right? They're just waiting for someone who looks a little disoriented and looks a little confused. And again, like if you're walking through the bar areas at 3 o'clock in the morning, stay right in the middle of the street and walk fast. And if people say, hey, hey, what time is it? Hey, man, get a cigarette. Like, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. So it just escalates. The more touristy the place is, the more likely you are to get in trouble.
Yeah. So,
and by the way, I've left things in villages, that people have chased me down to go find me and say, hey, you left your camera bag, or you left this sitting on a ledge because you were preoccupied. In tourist places like Vatican, I had all my luggage stolen. I mean, because they sit there and people come in, they park, and they know they're going to be gone for like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
You kind of like put your stuff in the trunk, lock it. They walk down, poop, and pop your trunk, and they know exactly where you are, right? And they do it all day long. And you look up and you see the kids sitting on the edge of the parking lot just waiting.
Yeah. I hate carrying stuff to foreign countries, but now it's difficult not to. I mean, I always got the computer with me. I got work to do, and I got...
Good. Well, if you're working, it's different. Okay, so let's separate those two things. So you're working, you're carrying a ton of crap, right?
Yeah.
And everything you carry can get stolen, smashed, lost, whatever. You need to go through a different system, like customs brokers and people that meet you at the airport with vans, and like that becomes very expensive. But if you're traveling for fun and you think you're traveling like a professional, as you see people with all kinds of gear, you're taking away from the experience. And we can have this discussion of watching YouTube and say, are these people living or are they filming themselves? Because it's kind of hard to do both. Like, imagine a guy has to go forward, put a camera, pretend like he's walking, go back, get the camera, set it up somewhere else, get his drone up there, click on, follow me, and then pretend like he's walking. And it's like, did you actually do the thing that you filmed yourself doing? Or is it just about filming content? And I believe that cameras are a good bridge. Like, I want to take your picture, where are you from, blah, blah, blah. But they should be a two-way street. You should be able to give them that photo or email it to them or something and get to know somebody.
Yeah.
And a lot of street photography stuff I see is like steal it, right? Like they can't see you. Like, you'll get your ass kicked if you do that in some countries.
Yeah, a lot of people do that.
So...
Well, I haven't really had anything stolen in foreign countries. I've had stuff stolen here, though, so it's always good to look out for.
Well, it's a business now, right?
Yeah.
With eBay and whatever. People driving down the streets, smashing windows, looking for suitcases, smashing windows.
Yeah, my camera's stolen.
And they have people that put that on eBay within minutes. It gets sold. It's weird. It's a weird business. But in a foreign country, there's like local justice, right? And people know everybody. They know the locals. And I remember in the Philippines, everybody carries guns, right? And you have to check your gun when you go into a bar and a restaurant. And all the cops work as security. And so we did a ride along with the police unit. And the guy was giving me the prices to have people shot. And he's talking to me as a journalist. And he's saying, well, if you want a hard knock, he calls it, it's like $700, which is a lot of money. But what they do is they have a criminal that they're going to arrest, and instead of just knocking on the door and bringing him down, they go in there and start smashing in doors and shooting guns, and the guy ultimately gets killed, right? And so the journalist would be able to film that. So on a slow day, if you need something really violent, they would charge you that much money. If you had a business dispute with somebody, they'd charge you one another price. If you had a debt, that you wanted to collect, whatever. And so the police are very open about what they charge. And I'm going, I really can't be having this conversation. It's only for journalistic purposes, but it's scary as hell, right? Because you realize that, you think you're cool, you're going to get into a fist fight and do something in this town or whatever. And, they have their own system of justice.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
So if somebody steals your stuff, for example, I had somebody take something of mine, and my host in Afghanistan was incensed. And he was going to get his posse, whatever it was, his guys and his pickup trucks, and they were going to go screw up that village that had taken my thing. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to start a war. But their honor had been insulted, right? That you would take something from my friend, and, so that was weird.
That'd be a bad day if you're like, oh, wait, it's under my bed.
12 dead people later. Yeah. But the point is that you're sort of used to crime here where you call the insurance company, you call a cop, they don't care. Over there, it can have very different consequences, particularly when you're carrying, fast story. I'm in Bamako, Mali, and there's these 3 girls that are dressed like Madonna, and I'm like, okay, you're in a Muslim country, and you shouldn't be dressed like that because it's going to cause problems. And I said their father or their parents bought them a round-the-world ticket, and it was like London, Paris, Istanbul. So they went and changed it to all these cool places. And so one of the places they want to go to was like Timbuktu or Bamako. And they were having fun. They're in their 20s, whatever, and they're going to go down to the market and go shopping. And I said, I honestly don't think you should go down there. So I said, let me just shadow you or come with you so that if something happens, at least I can help out. They get down there. The women, who are dressed from head to toe, start throwing rocks at them, and bigger rocks, and they're calling them names, and they have to flee, right? So they get back to the hotel. Now, I'm carrying a camera, and I'm not paying attention, and I'm at a bus stop, and somebody starts tugging on my camera, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's trying to steal my camera, but it's around my neck, and I sort of push him back and biff him, and then this bus pulls up, and all the people are yelling at me and at him in French, right? And they're saying to the guy who's trying to steal my camera, "Shame on you. What are you doing stealing that guy's camera?" And they're yelling at me like, "Shame on you, carrying that expensive camera around tempting people." And I'm like, they're both right,
Yeah.
So this cultural thing is like these women didn't, just because they got on a plane and ended up in a different continent, a different country, they didn't transfer any kind of logic into what they were doing, because them it's just like Disney World, right?
Yeah.
Me, I'm thinking I know my way around, and I'm not thinking that you basically thousands of dollars around your neck, and these poor kids are going to see it as a target, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a lot of things you learn about justice, law, how things are dealt with when you get out of this country.
Yeah.
Camera's an invitation to get robbed,
It is.
because you can sell it
it's
quickly.
showing money
Laptop
and all
is
that kind of
cell phone.
stuff.
Any electronic device will be coveted by some people.
Yeah.
Watch. And, they say, "Oh, don't wear jewelry." Like, nobody wears jewelry. But the thing is, a camera is kind of like jewelry, right? An iPhone is, they know exactly what model it is, and that's $1,000.
Yeah.
And if you're not watching it, knock it out of your hand, and off they go.
So just try and travel with us like the least amount of stuff as possible.
Well, okay, why are you traveling? Right?
Yeah.
Is it because the pictures you're going to take when you come back home, or is it the experiences you're going to have where a guy says, "Well, let's go hike up in the mountains"? Well, if you had 2 suitcases, how the hell are you going to do that, right? If you just got one backpack, and, for years and years I traveled with one pack. I had a little butt bag for my lenses and stuff and fake wallet, and I had a backpack like about this big, carry-on size.
Mm-hmm.
And when I traveled, I used to stuff it in a UN flour bag, right, so that people couldn't steal things out of it. And that was fun, as long as my hands were free, right?
A UN flour bag? What's like a...
So what happens is that
you-
sometimes they make you check your bag because they want to steal
Yeah.
stuff out of it, particularly in Africa and
that
Central
happens.
Asia.
Yeah, right.
So what I would do is I would stick it in fits in tightly. A UN flour bag is like a standard white plastic woven bag. So it's dirty, filthy thing. I would just shove my pack in there and then, tape up or wire up the top.
Just
So
camouflage it.
yeah, and so because what they would do, and I would keep all my dirty socks and underwear on the outside pockets, but it was a unique backpack because it had pockets on the outside, and on the outside I would put things that are worth nothing, that they would try to, and by the time they got through those, they'd be like, "Damn."
Yeah, like South America. The worst, one of the worst airports I ever traveled to was Guayaquil in Ecuador, and they did that with my brother. It was a DPX knife, and what they do is they take you through the multiple security checkpoints, because even if you're carrying something on your bag, you have to go downstairs, and then we have to look at your bag. They take everything out of it, and he had it in like a Ziploc with a bunch of other things, and there's just a little razor blade cut through the Ziploc. They didn't even open it from the top. They just cut the bottom, and the knife was gone. Yeah, the black.
They would say it was security, but it was actually like they would take things from you and you'd have to buy them back.
Yeah,
It's
it's the
so
worst.
frustrating.
It is so frustrating. I was flying out because we went to the Galapagos, then I was in Guayaquil, and they said, "Oh, do you have anything on you? Do you have drugs? Do you have drugs? We don't trust you. You have to go through an X-ray machine." And they sent me through this like janky X-ray machine.
Yeah, probably took 20 years off.
And exactly. I was like, I'm not going through that. And they said, "Oh, well, then you're going to jail." It's like, okay.
Well, the other thing we should talk about is weapons, right? Like, should you carry something that functions as a weapon, right? And a lot of people think, "Oh, when I get there, I'll get a knife, or I'll do this, or I'll have that, or some like mace or whatever." And typically, when you're mugged, or when somebody tries to mug you, they're going to come at you from behind, or they're going to drug you, or they're going to separate you from the thing they want to steal, right? And they'll use tricks like confidence tricks. And I actually designed a knife that fits in your hand for non-lethal use. So it's got like a skull crusher, so that what you can do is if someone is trying to do something to you, you don't want to stab anybody. I mean, you'll end up in jail for the rest of your life, right? But what you want to do is give them extreme pain. And so you want to hit them on the sides of the heads, the knees, the elbows, any kind of bony part as hard as you can, as many times as you can. And that would then break the chain, right? Same thing with the fake wallet. If someone is facing you down and wants something, you throw it and then you go the other way because you don't want to be around when he figures out what he's got. But the point is that getting mugged is a problem about proximity. Getting too close to people, people inviting you over. It's also a function of being in the wrong place. And muggers typically congregate where tourists are or people walk when it's dark or late. And, I know lots of people that go for jogs. They every day they do like a little thing, and I'm like, damn, I wouldn't do that. But typically something that's solid that you can buy, like whether it's a screwdriver or whether it's something that just gives you something that provides some pushback, if someone grabs you around the neck or whatever. And the other thing is you're not going to get in a fist fight. You're not going to use any kung fu. You're basically going to have to poke them in the eyes. That's really the only quick positive thing you can do to disarm one person. But the other thing is just don't go in there. Don't get the hell out of there. If anything even seems slightly weird, turn around. And this is also a trick if you want to know if somebody's following you, is you do like the little U-loop. So you're walking down the street, you cross the street, you walk the other way. If somebody's following you, they have to turn around. Now, if it's a two-man team, then you're in trouble because they're probably professionals. But if someone sees something on you, like a camera or something that they want, they will try to follow you into a place where they think they could make the move and then get away with it. Also, when you're driving, or if you're on a scooter or something, they have no problem. You're driving 20, 30 miles an hour. They have no problem trying to grab something from you in a moving car. And then, the whole thing about parking. It's if you leave something in a car and it's parked in most countries on this earth, it's gone.
Yeah, even here, man. It's in most.
So the more stuff you take, the more stressed you are about losing that thing, right?
Yeah, and it's also about not making yourself an easy target, huh? So whatever you can do to make yourself not an easy target. How about tell me about just the way you carry yourself, maybe in a country.
I'm 6'4", so I have a slight advantage if someone is thinking, "Oh, I'm going to jump that guy and take his watch." Typically, when you move on foot, you want to stay away from the sides of buildings. You want to get out as close to the street, or sometimes at night in the middle of the street. Even though it sounds weird, it just people can't come out and get you, right? You want to move quickly, but you want to move erratically. So if you're moving from place to place, you want to break your stride and go left or go right or turn around and walk back and look in a window. And if somebody backs up because they're like, "Oh Jesus," it's just good travel thinking is to make sure you're not being followed. I'm saying, do people get followed? No, but if you do get followed, that's probably not a good thing. So that's controlling your movements, your situation. If you have a friend, if you have a guide or something, you can ask them about where the criminals are, what they do, what the scams are, whatever, And if you're really paranoid, you can go to the police station and say, "What should I be afraid of?" And they'll give you lists and lists of pickpocketing. Another thing that people don't do, I don't know why they don't do it, is before you go somewhere, go on Google and type "tourist killed," "tourist robbed," "tourist, murdered," whatever you think would be appropriate for that area, and you'll see all those local news stories pop up. I was doing something on Mexico, on the country security, and I noticed how many people fell off of balconies in coastal hotels, particularly in the cheaper resort areas on the Atlantic side. And I guess assume because they're rusting balconies, right? They're old buildings, rusty balconies, but there's weird little rashes of people in car crashes falling off of balconies, being poisoned. There's a thing in Colombia now about you go on a dating site and they use it as a way to get you alone with your wallet, with your passport, and then they drug you, right? They put, they call it burn dugga or whatever, but they can slip anything into your drink, just to make you woozy or whatever. And they can take whatever you have with you. It's a very relatively cheap investment on their part to take. It's one guy got killed, but the point is this: that whenever there's tourists, there's a scam, and it's the same scam repeated over and over and over again, and everybody knows about it except you, because you just got off a plane and you're jet lagged and you want to go down and have that drink in that crazy bar, downtown. So anyway,
Speak to people about it, ask questions.
social bubble. It's doesn't have very sexy travel advice, but you're there to learn. You're there to understand. So why not start talking to people? Now, let's say you're a total social retard. Let's say you have no way of talking to people. You're just shy as hell. You can ask for directions. You can ask, would you recommend a good restaurant? And if people start getting too engaged in what you're doing and you don't want to do what they want to do, you just tell them you're meeting your friend or your husband or your whatever, at 6:00 and you have to go. So manage your own social bubble, but create that bubble. Don't just take the selfies and by the way, if you ever see people walking on their phones, and if you ever wonder what would be a perfect way to rob somebody, it's all these zombies using their phone as a way to entertain themselves, right? Because they're in a new place or they're waiting for somebody, but they're completely fixated on that thing, not what's going on around them. So it makes it even easier if you're a bad person and you want to target someone and they are a heavy phone user or they use their phone as their entertainment device.
Do you have tips for awareness? General situational awareness.
What is situational awareness, right? It's a series of layers that start from you, like how do you feel? Are you feeling okay? Are you scared? Are you worried? Are you happy? Whatever. And they kind of go out. Are you safe? Is your hotel room secure? Is the building you're in going to burn down? Is the town you're in going to get shelled or rocketed? It may sound extreme, but I'm just saying that
situation extreme for some people, but it's a reality for a lot of the travel you've done in your life.
When we were in Ukraine, they said, don't stay on the top floor, every night on top floor.
Yeah.
and the power's out, so you have to drag your crap all the way to the top floor.
So it depends on how people are traveling, but this is good advice for.
So what I'm saying is, again, I like traveling alone. A lot of people don't like traveling alone, but situational awareness is just an assessment of, am I comfortable doing that? Do I feel sick? Did I eat something? Should I go see a doctor? Blah, blah, blah. So that you are taking care of yourself, right? And then it expands out from is the car I'm driving in safe? Is this driver stoned, like I've found many times? The driver's just whacked out of his mind on some drug, and I'm like, I have to stop this. I have to take responsibility for my own security. I can't let this guy drive the way he's driving because he's drunk, right? And Princess Diana would probably agree with that. But the point is that if you control your environment, you'll be a lot safer because you'll be a lot more aware. And if you notice something that bothers you, you'll do something about it to make yourself safer. If you're just like, oh, well, we're in the helicopter and there's tires are blown, I guess, inshallah, we'll make it. You're increasing your risk. It's very cinematic, but you're increasing your risk level every time you don't take control for your own.
Well, there's a part of letting go too, though.
Okay, so that's probably the single most important thing. If you're trying to be adventurous because you're trying to get out of your bubble. So remember, you're responsible for creating the bubble. If you feel secure, you're well fed, you're healthy, you're confident, whatever, okay, fine. You can now go out of that bubble. What is going out of the bubble? Well, is it going scuba diving? Well, you're more likely to die in a car crash than scuba diving, although you're more likely to die in scuba diving if you go to a resort. So, there's weird things, right? That you have to be careful because you get yourself into a situation, and I love those parasailing videos in Mexico where people just disappear. It's like, what was that guy thinking again? But bungee jumping is safer than walking down the street. So it's just weird things that if you don't know the statistical probability, or if you're not able to judge how safe this thing may be, then you are not taking responsibility for your own security, health, and safety. Right?
This is uncommon common sense.
No, it's a weird line between why are we going on vacation? Why am I going to Africa on safari, right? I want to do something I don't normally do. I want to go outside of my comfort level, let's say, for an amateur traveler. I want to see things that look dangerous, like lions and tigers. I'm not going to get eaten. I'm not going to. But you might die in a bus crash, right? You might catch some horrific parasite, in the hotel food. But most people don't think of it that way. They're fixated on the thing that scares them or the thrill, and then they realize that the other thing is what they should have worried about.
Right.
So the more you understand the risks involved, the more outside of your bubble you can go. Like literally go to the front lines where you're being shelled and understand what the odds of getting shelled are, how you avoid getting killed by bullets and shells. It's just a function of understanding the risks, right?
Yeah.
So...
And obviously you get better at that the more you do it, like anything else.
No, statistically you're going to get killed, right? So ultimately at the end of the day you're going to die, right?
I meant just understanding.
Yeah. But I'm saying that there's a limited amount you can expose yourself
Right.
to extreme risk, right? And everybody knows about the young surfer and the promising race car driver and
Right.
blah, blah, blah. So it starts with being comfortable and safe. And then you push out from there. You don't go like, oh, all my friends are jumping off a cliff. I'll jump off a cliff, because you'll probably do something really stupid, like motorcycle racing, right? I never thought I'd race motorcycles. I've been riding a motorcycle since I was, 16, something like that. Never took a lesson. Drove in the winter, survived, whatever. And then I took an actual class teaching me how to drive a motorcycle at Laguna Seca, Willow Springs, whatever. And I realized how my brain was doing the exact wrong thing. Is like you see something, you grab the brakes and it throws the bike straight up and you go right into the thing that you're looking at, right? Whereas you're supposed to lean in, put the gas on, and you... So there's a lot of things that once you learn how to do them are not that dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But you realize that, boy, was I stupid not understanding the dynamics of that thing.
And I bet you thought you knew everything when you were stupid about that subject. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect.
That's the young guy, and most people die in the first few months of owning a motorcycle, and particularly young people, right? So it's everything I write about is like guns, bombs, poison, drugs, diseases, robberies, whatever. It comes from analyzing how things work, where the safe zone is and where it gets unsafe, and then measuring it against other things, so that when you want to kind of go outside of the bubble, you can do it comfortably. You can do it with a professional or with a professional demeanor, and you can go like, whoa, that was close, but that was interesting, right? So we fear things that don't necessarily kill us, because we have either phobias or we're unused to something. But the most dangerous thing is ignorance, because you think you know something, and that's the thing that you don't pay attention to. You think you can ride a horse, you think you can ride a motorcycle, you think you can go scuba diving, whatever. And, for example, first time I went scuba diving offshore, like in a foreign country, I was in the Cayman Islands, had my brand new U.S. diver's gear, like professional Navy SEAL quality stuff, and taking my dive classes. And the very first time I go down, I'm down at 90 feet, and I look at my air gauge, and it's like one like this. Just, what had happened is that the aircraft had vibrated my bolts loose on my octopus, and so my air was coming out the back. So I remembered that if I just slowly ascend, my lungs will expand, right? And if I just slowly breathe small amounts of oxygen out, which is not what you're thinking when you're running out of oxygen. You're thinking like, I got to hold on to every bit of it. It's like the motorcycle story. It's not intuitive, right? It's something you have to be taught.
Right.
And so whether it's first aid or CPR or racing, driving, climbing, hiking, hypothermia, whatever, learn those things.
Right.
Spend some time with someone that has expertise on that.
That's what I tell people, all the time. I think that even guns, the amount of people that own guns in this country, and I'm like, how is it not mandatory that you have to take a class? With having something
shot by a gun
so
is even
dangerous.
worse. Like, how many people know what to do when you are stabbed or when you're shot? Or
I think everyone listening to this podcast should take a woofer course or a wilderness first aid course, CERT course, EMT course. You can do this over weekends and
do this. No
learn
fun.
a lot of this knowledge.
It's more fun just to take selfies of yourself on a cliff. So,
This is amazing.
but you're taking some of the fun out of danger. The more you learn about that aspect, the more comfortable you are doing it. Yeah.
Okay. You're saying you're taking fun out of the danger. But yeah, interesting, yeah.
It's something that once you get educated and trained in, you know where it's coming from, how far the explosions are away, who's doing those explosions, what's dropping them, or their artillery. And I have to say, it's really interesting. The more you understand a danger, the more comfortable you are, and the more you can actually benefit from exposing yourself to that world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what are the things, like you usually get extra premiums if you're a scuba diver, if you're a motorcycle driver. All these things were on my insurance premiums. But I felt comfortable doing them because I wouldn't take risks. I wouldn't take unnecessary risks. I would only take measured risks. So I think that's the key is and that could be a Dunning-Kruger effect too, thinking that you have the ability to measure risk, right?
No.
And you're not always in control.
Yeah, I would disagree. I think that you're not in control, and that's why you're taking that measured risk. That's a very important thing. You're saying, I don't know everything, so I'm going to plan for the best, prepare for the worst. I don't think that's
But here's some advice. Yeah. Let's say you are comfortable in a situation like warfare, or motorcycle racing, or mountain climbing, or surfing. When things go badly, you adopt what I learned from Special Forces training, and that is just deal with what you can deal with, right? Mm-hmm. Each second, each foot, what's in front of you. Don't try to think, oh, if I do this is going to happen in 10 minutes. And typically, that focuses your mind. Mm-hmm. Your breathing is slower. Your heart rate is not going crazy. And that focus lets you deal with whatever. Now, if it's hopeless and you're falling 50,000 feet, I'm sure, fine, whatever. But the point is that in most situations where things are going badly, like a car accident or a plane, sometimes you don't have control. You're just in the car and you're in the plane and it happens. But in situations where somebody's attacking you or trying to rob you or something, doing it inch by inch, second by second is a really good philosophy for dealing with stress or danger. Mm-hmm. And training in other things, not necessarily the thing that's happening in front of you, teaches you that if your car's sliding or if your oxygen is going too quickly or you're bleeding out of this, there's something you can do. Right. Or even something you can tell somebody else to do. So,
and just having that certain level of confidence is going to better your situation. But on top of that, you just go back to your lowest level of training. So certain things become automatic. And
I don't think unless you do the same thing every day, I don't know that training gets routine. Like, it can help you deal with situations that are survivable, right? Like being wounded or whatever.
Because I've seen people that have never done the training. They're just,
they lock up. They scream.
Yeah.
It's like when I was in a plane crash and I was in another one where the plane was crashing, but it didn't crash because it was like one of these rapid descents. And everybody was screaming, and I'm like...
Only Robert Pelton. One time I was in a plane crash. Not that one plane crash, but the other. No,
I'm saying in the actual plane crash, you bounce. When you hit the ground, you actually think, oh, I'm alive, and you're sort of weightless for a short... And it's like, oh, boom, and that's the crash. Yeah. When I was in an airliner... I think we were at 30,000 feet midway through the flight. And it's like I heard this loud bang, right? And plane just went straight down, just like, and I don't know how fast planes can go, but that's how fast that plane was going. And then, boom, he landed. And everybody was screaming, and they're praying, and I'm like, just let me finish my drink. Just let me finish my drink. Because, look, you don't have any control over what's about to happen, right? You can tighten your seatbelt, you can clutch your knees or whatever, but honestly, this is it. This is the end. Think about good things. And when we got to the bottom, what we realized is that he was flying, that pilot got a fire warning in the landing wheels, I guess. And so the way to put that fire out is to drop the gear and then just go as fast as you can to put the fire out. But he didn't say a damn thing.
That's so weird. Why wouldn't he say something about it? You tell me.
That's what freaked people out. And again, he's probably busy doing what he was doing. God. So anyway, but I'm just saying that if you know at least a little bit about how planes work and what's normal, what's not normal, then you won't go crazy. Like you've seen those pictures of people in turbulence, right? Yeah. And it doesn't really bother me. Like I've flown through thunderstorms in Malaysia and all these places, and it's rough. And you see the wings just like, and the engines go, you see the lightning, and you're like, this is a really bad idea to be flying in this kind of weather. But anyway, so those are some of the key things about dealing with stress and danger and travel. And there are two different ends of the spectrum: getting to know people, understanding where you're at, understanding what the threats are, and maybe having some training or some understanding of what the process is to deal with fire, to deal with medical emergencies, gunfire, robbery, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is try to get something out of each trip, like out of each journey, each thing. Try to think, okay, why am I here? What do I want to do? What do I want to see? And sometimes setting a goal is important, like the classic hero's journey or whatever, where you go from being like sort of naive or ignorant about something, and then you get sort of expertise on it. Is a great idea. So
yeah, that's a great idea.
So drop the idea of like, oh, I need to go to 100 countries.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's something like 300 and some odd territories and countries and whatever. There's a guy, he's like, oh, I've been to every country and I did it faster than anybody. And I'm like,
but that's a goal, though. Hey, at least he had a goal, man. A lot of people.
All right, okay, so he's got the goal. Okay, fine, sorry, you're right. But at the same time, you know, I go to Afghanistan all the time because I like it, right? Or Somalia, and because I have friends there, and I learn more every time I go there, right? Whether it's Italy or whatever. I'm just saying that
I don't think you can help but not learn. I mean,
because you go deeper and deeper.
You're a very curious person. Some people aren't as curious as you, so I think that's a very good tip. Is that having a goal, you're creating a purpose, a sense of purpose of why you're going somewhere, and that keeps someone engaged.
Right. So you know, I used to do expeditions. So, I mean, I'll back up even more. I worked for a guy who worked in real estate. He worked all the time, 10, 12 hours a day. But his wife, before she married him, said, okay, you're going to take a month off. You're not going to bring anything with you. You're not going to call the office. You're going to take a month off. And his logic was, well, okay, if my office is running well, then it should run fine without me, right? That's a good business. So they would go to some exotic place, like Iran or like, you know, interesting place. And he would come back after a month. He'd be suntanned. He'd be happy. He wasn't like smoking 5 packs of cigarette a day. And you can literally see the difference, right? And I thought, you know, I would adopt that. So when I had my business, you know, I had 10,000 square feet. I had 50 employees, and I worked 7 days a week, 10, 12, you know, and everything had to be done right away. You know, this is really important. But I would take that month and I would do expeditions. I'd pick a place on a map. Back then they had white spots on maps, and I would say, okay, I'm going there, like Borneo. I'm going to this place.
What's a white spot on the map?
So they used to have maps, aviation maps and things like that, and there was literally a white spot. And it said area not surveyed or something, you know, because cloud cover or something, you know. And I thought that was fascinating, you know, so I would go to those places. And then I would do expeditions, you know, drive around Borneo, drive across Africa, whatever. And then these journalists would say, well, I bet you can't go here, I bet you can't go there. And I was like, what do you mean, like where? Like Afghanistan, where they're going to kill you, right? And I'm like, well, what do you want to do there? He said, well, I want to interview this guy or the Taliban. Or I want to interview this warlord. And I'm like, oh, okay. So if I go there, and would you come and interview me? They go, yeah, good luck. So I would do that. I would go to these places, and I would meet warlords, and I would go to places that were held by rebels. And you know, journalists at that time would have to get their boss to pay them to do that, and they would have to go through a very structured process. And it's even worse now because of insurance and whatever. And I would do these things, and I found that even more fascinating because that was a real-world adventure. These were like places you had to sneak into, you know, hiding in trunks of cars, meeting with people that were wanted, like the most wanted guy in the Philippines, and hanging out with him and trying to figure out what makes him tick and why.
Did they ever put a bag over your head?
No, they blindfolded us. Like when I was in Grozny, they just drove us around in circles. But I could hear the same machine, like a generator, so I knew they were driving around in circles.
That's situational awareness we're talking about right there.
Well, I mean, I'm not good at that, but the point is that these new things into conflict areas were even more interesting, and the people that were holed up in the mountains, and I was trying to be the first person to film them or something like that. And then I realized, like, I need to write about this. I need to film it. I need to do something because these guys were working so hard to get me into these rebel camps or whatever, and so I began writing a book, World's Most Dangerous Places. I started filming, and people thought I was crazy. Like, why would you go to a remote island to meet a rebel leader that lives above the mountains? And I'm like, that's why people live, isn't it? Like, that's... And I realize, like you say, some people think that's a stupid idea. because like I just watch it on TV. And I said, it's not on TV. It doesn't exist. Like nobody's been there. I'm filming for the first time. So that kind of immersive travel and that kind of immersive experiences, I don't call it war, because some places are peaceful and full of war zones. Some places are completely fucked up, but there's no war. I mean, there's a wide variety of regions that are dangerous to travel in. And I didn't work as a journalist until 2001, and I had an invitation to go into the war with General Dostum, and that's when I met a Special Forces team, and I interviewed that jihadi guy, John Walker Lynn. And then I worked as a journalist for CBS 60 Minutes. I worked for ABC Investigative. I worked for National Geographic, blah, blah, blah. And I found it too restrictive. I was in Iraq, and we had a luxury hotel, and everybody was on the roof doing their broadcasts. And I wanted to just go out there, and they're like, oh, you can't do that. You got to take your security detail with you. And luckily, I had a really cool guy who was an SBS, a Special Boat Squadron guy, who's now dead. But he'd climb Mount Everest, and he said, yeah, let's fuck off. Let's just go out there and do this thing. So we just go out, way out. But that was not journalism. Journalism was basically, you got to be back by such and such. We got to cut the tape together. Got to go to air by this time.
Wow, that sounds boring.
Very restrictive. And so then I started doing documentaries, and I remember the guys from Vice approached me and said, well, we want to do like what you do, like dangerous places and videos. And I'm like, oh, how much money? He's like, we don't have any money. I'm like, well, why would I do what I do now for no money? And that was Vice, right? That was the beginning of Vice TV. It wasn't until like 2013 that they started a news division, they had documentaries, and I said, let me show you how it's done, right? So I took this lost boy, child soldier, back to Africa to fix Africa in the middle of a war, to film a rebel group that had never been filmed before, and it's called Saving South Sudan. And then I wrote an entire magazine, 50,000 words in like 3 weeks, and I took pictures and I took film, and Tim Frescia came along as the cameraman, and I said, boom, that's how you do it. And they're just like, oh, okay, so you can do that. But I said, yeah, but you have to have a goal of going to some place that nobody else is at. There's no journalists where we are. They're literally killing each other in the spears. It's just like insane. But you have to have that vision and that goal and that drive to get there. Even though people are stopping you, they're like, think you're crazy. You get there and people are like, that's what it looks like. That's what the world looks like. On the flip side of that, there was a period in which there was something like 12,000 war journalists. During the Iraq War, they would give anybody a badge to do an embed or whatever. And you had this sudden explosion of war correspondence, which I've never called myself, but I cover war. And suddenly everybody had like a helmet and a ballistic vest and a thing that said press on it, and they had a microphone, and they were riding around in tanks and armored cars and whatever. And like, I can't do that. I can't do that. As a matter of fact, that when I was working for ABC, I said, I'm just going to go hang out with my friends, the Special Forces guys. And they're like, you can't do that. I said, why? Because we'll lose our embeds. And I'm like, I don't want an embed. I just want to go do this. And I remember by mistake, the military sent a response to ABC saying, in all caps, this guy is going nowhere, exclamation mark. Because they didn't want a guy like me just wandering around. And which I ended up doing I bought a red Bentley, and I just cruised around cataloging mass graves and living at people's houses. I mean, right in the middle of the conflict when they were looking for Uday and Kusay. So I'm just saying that the walls or the expansiveness of adventure are quite wide. And if you pick something that you're fascinated in, something that you really want to understand and document, it's my education, right? It's my university degree. Yeah. And if other people learn from it, then that's great. But what they should learn is that I learn. I'm not showing off. I'm not trying to say, look how brave I am. I'm asking people, like I said, I'm building that bubble. And if somebody says, don't go down there because they're shooting people, then I don't go there. I don't want to get shot, right? But when I do show up on a battlefield, it's like sometimes like the Special Forces guys are like, are you the guy on that TV show? And I'm, yeah. I love that show. I'm thinking,
you're everywhere, man.
No, what I'm saying is, I'm in my lane, I'm not a military freak. I'm not trying to prove anything, but I really am fascinated by conflict and the world changing, and by bizarre rebel groups and whatever. And are people interested in that anymore? I don't know, right?
I think people are very interested in it.
I think it's tough.
Sometimes but people sometimes don't know what they don't know. And I think it takes a soul or a person like you to put it out there. Right. So that people are...
You know, when in the 70s, when I was a kid, people used to hitchhike on ships. Mm-hmm. They would offer to crew on some yacht, and they'd sail all over the world, right? And when they get off, they would work as like a bodyguard, or they'd work as a bartender or something. You know, they just didn't have a penny to their name. They just traveled all around the world. And I thought, I used to hitchhike across the country, you know, Miami to Vancouver. I just hitchhiked.
That's cool, yeah.
Today, if you say to somebody, well, why don't you jump on a yacht and go here? And they'd be like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
And you remember we had this experiment where I took my 2 grandsons. One was 15, the other one was 5. And they didn't understand what the hell I was talking about. Like, would you go to a dangerous place? And they go, no, that's dangerous. And the 15-year-old was more concerned, like, you mean like skateboarding? And I'm like, no, because that used to be a genre, right? Extreme. Like, look at me, I'm jumping off a cliff, I'm going to break my ankle, I'm doing this stunt. And I'm like, no, not like that. I mean, something where you actually learn things, where you literally go to a place that blows your mind and you meet people who tell you stories that blow your mind.
That's the thing about blowing your mind. I think that it's very scary for a lot of people, just the psychological aspect of what you do.
Well, some people get PTSD, you know. Yeah. You see a lot of violence, you see a lot of things, poverty. I spent a lot of time in refugee.
Culture shock when you go to a lot of these places.
Culture shock, I guess there's such a thing. But, you know, I spent 2 years working for a charity, getting them funded on promoting them, you know, pulling a lot of dead people out of the water, right? The migrants. In the Mediterranean. And then I went to Libya to understand the smugglers and whatever, you know, to learn about this thing. And I have to say, I'm glad I did that, right?
Yeah, totally. The world is glad you did that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that somebody's got to do that. Somebody's got to say, it's not being done, but I want to do that, right? And then the next question is, well, how do I get paid? And I've always been kind of an entrepreneur, so I would do something and then find someone to buy it or pay for it, right?
Figure it out on the back end.
And sometimes I've done things that I might as well just burn the money, you know, because it's like... Other times I've done things that have been worldwide news stories, right? So I'm not trying to be like a guy who gets a scoop, but I'm trying to find out something. And then I write books, and people read my books because they think like, wow, I spent, I don't know, 5 years traveling with mercenaries, contractors, running up and down Red Irish, going to Africa, hanging out with mercenaries.
Wild.
Just to understand that whole world, and I wrote a book called License to Kill, right? It's not a danger book, it's not an adventure book, but what I like about it is that people say, like, this guy just wrote this book. It was a highly politicized topic. It was at the peak of the Iraq War, most violent.
That's the first book I read by you.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, an interesting way to, you know.
But you would never think that this guy used to be in the mountains with guys with bones to their nose and spears.
Well, I think there was a couple guys that were writing books while you were writing the book about the same thing, but they were cohorts of yours, but they weren't.
But they were very politicized.
They were politicized, and they weren't actually. They
didn't actually hang out. They didn't actually live with them.
Yes,
that's the point. I ran Red Irish every day for a month, right? Sometimes 2 times a day. And every time you did it was you took your life into your hands. People tried to kill you, and it's like if you got back, it was like, okay, Corona on the roof. Yeah. So I got to know these people, and these people got to know me, and I just wanted to communicate what it's like to do that kind of job. And then that's all I do, like whether it's a rebel leader, whether it's terrorists, whatever, you know, it's always understanding why this person is what they are. Yeah. So at the micro level, just talking to cab drivers, just talking to waitresses, just talking to guys standing on the corner of the street, you know, and the camera gives you that entree to talk to people sometimes. And video is a little tougher, you know, filming people are kind of like nervous, like, why are you filming me? But it's what I do now, right? And capturing interviews with people that don't want to be interviewed it's like bagging wild game. You know, people used to travel around to get the big 5, and I'm like, that's easy. You know, these guys shoot back. So when I go out, I want to tell stories that haven't been told. Yeah. And in doing that, maybe motivate people to think like, maybe I could do something like that. I can get out of my bubble, right? and I can do something that's me, right? It's like it's me doing something I want to do with somebody. So
Yeah, I think you influenced a lot of people.
so surviving all that is not difficult if you follow the basic rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and that's what we talked about, is building that social bubble, getting some training in areas that are technical and deadly, whether it's first aid or scuba diving or guns, and
Situational
constantly learning from people, constantly asking people, you know,
being curious.
and then they'll drive you forward and they'll push you forward.
Yeah, and I like that last one is have a goal. I think that's what I think people, they don't take the leap because they don't know what they're going. They find themselves somewhere and they're kind of floating and they don't. But have a goal before you go. Just accomplish something, and when you, however long it takes, a week or two, and just by doing that goal, there's so many offshoots that you're gonna spread your tentacles throughout that culture and pick up all kinds of different things when you get home. And I think that this is a good point to kind of wrap up this podcast, because I think next podcast we'll talk about when you actually do find yourself in the shit. What do you do? How do you course correct? Yeah. They can't shit me.
Well, anyway, this is a great way to communicate information, and it's a great starting point to read books, watch documentaries, you read the histories of other explorers, people that have sort of gone places that were considered dangerous or untrodden, and realize that all those people had a local guide.
Yeah.
In other words, even discovering the source of the Nile or whatever, there was always a guy saying, "Oh, go, it's over here."
Yeah.
And that's the guy that never gets the headlines, but
Gunga
that
did.
social bubble, yeah. But
we should do one of these where all we do is we talk about kind of what's influenced you, good books.
yeah, we should do a list of things worth reading
Yeah.
that'll get you excited, because there are some amazing books by people that you why haven't they made a movie about this guy, right? Like, why is it they're making superheroes, whatever, when these guys actually did things that are like
real, stranger than, I mean, some of these stories are just stranger than fiction.
Yeah. Well, I was watching Napoleon last night, and I thought, they're not even scratching the surface of his motivation, right? Not even scratching the surface. And this is a guy who came from nothing, right? Became emperor of France or whatever. People need to be great in their thinking, right? Like, structure themselves as more than just living for 80 years and dropping dead. Like, you can make an impact. So the more you venture out, the more self-confidence you have, and the more you learn people, meet people, talk about things,
create goals,
the wider your social network grows. So, All right, so that's a wrap.
Yes.